For today's presentation, we'll be providing information on the state policy implementations impacting the Medi-Cal program. We will discuss what those changes are and who they will affect. We will be going over the Medi-Cal asset reinstatement, the expansion freeze, the expansion grace period, how to stay connected with the Department of Public Social Services, how to apply for Medi-Cal, and at the end, we'll have an opportunity for our attendees to ask questions and we'll be providing answers. Without further ado, we will get started and I will pass it on to Lisa Starling, who will go over the asset limits.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa Starling, and I'm one of the program analysts here at Medi-Cal program. And as stated, I'll be going over or presenting on the asset reinstatement. With that, let's go ahead and get started. So effective January 1, 2026, asset limits are being reinstated for certain Medi-Cal programs. These are programs such as the Age Blind Disabled program, the Medically Needy program, Medically Indigent, and long-term care programs. These are some of the programs that are evaluated under what's called the non-Magi Medi-Cal programs. And non-Magi Medi-Cal stands for non-modified adjusted gross income Medi-Cal program. So as stated, for non-Magi Medi-Cal, assets are required to determine a household's countable resources. So to determine if the household qualifies for Medi-Cal, assets are considered to make that determination. So as shown on the screen, for a household of one, the asset limit is $130,000. And for each additional household member, $65,000 is added for each additional household member. And that could be up to a maximum of 10 persons per household. So when referring to household members, I'm referring to immediate family members, such as a spouse or children under the age of 21. So those are the, when evaluating, we would consider those persons to make the determination of the household's countable resource limit. So for example, if a household contains 2 persons, the asset limit for that household size would be $195,000. And the way that's calculated is the $130,000 for the one person, plus the additional family member, $65,000 would be added, totaling $195,000. So in order for that household to qualify for non-Magi Medi-Cal, their assets must not exceed $195,000. And in addition, when it comes to non-Magi Medi-Cal, non-Magi Medi-Cal uses the rules that were in place before healthcare reform came into play back in January of 2014. So when healthcare reform was implemented, it implemented what's called the Magi Medi-Cal program. So for Magi Medi-Cal, it does not consider assets to determine a household's eligibility. And it evaluates for persons under the age of 65. So throughout the presentation, I'm going to be mentioning non-Magi Medi-Cal, but when I refer to Magi Medi-Cal, once again, that's evaluated for persons under the age of 65 years of age. So with that, let's go ahead and go to the next screen, I think. Yeah. So we'll see who's impacted by non-Magi Medi-Cal. So non-Magi Medi-Cal, it's individuals that are 65 years of age and older are evaluated under non-Magi. Individuals that have a disability, these are persons that can have a physical, mental, or developmental disability. Persons that reside in a long-term care facility or living in a nursing home. And if there are family members that make too much money to qualify under the federal tax rules, meaning they don't qualify under the Magi program, then they could be evaluated under non-Magi. So once again, under the MAGI program, it's evaluated for persons under the age of 65, but if they make too much money to qualify for MAGI, they would be evaluated under non-MAGI Medi-Cal. And that's specific to parents or children under the age of 21. So in order to be evaluated under non-MAGI, there has to be a linkage as a parent or a child under the age of 21 years of age. And moving on to the next screen, now we'll see what is considered property. So property are items that the family owns that have a I'm sorry, that have a monetary value to them. So these are items such as bank accounts. So bank accounts could be checking, savings accounts, or any type of financial institution accounts. Um, Homes, it can be the home that the individual resides in, or it can be rental property that the individual, second home that the individual owns that they rent out. Vehicles can be trucks, cars, um, motorhomes, watercraft or aircraft. Trust accounts could be revocable trust or irrevocable trust. So these are just some examples of what's considered assets. Once again, for non-Magi Medi-Cal, when evaluating, we look at assets to determine the household's eligibility, and that's based on the household's size and the asset limit that's designated for that household size. Next, let's look at what's considered exempt property. So when evaluating for non-Magi Medi-Cal, there are certain items or assets that are exempted, and they are as follows: the principal residence, which is the home the individual resides in. One vehicle is exempted. So if the household has more than one vehicle, the vehicle with the highest value is exempted. Household items, personal items such as clothing, wedding, engagement rings, heirlooms, musical instruments. So these are some examples of items that are exempted. There are others, but these are just some examples of some items that are exempted when evaluating for non-Magi Medi-Cal. Next, we'll look at ways that you could reduce excess assets. So if the household at the time of application is over the resource limit for their household size, then these are the ways that assets can be reduced for those who are not in an institution. And when I say institution, I mean individuals that are in a long-term care nursing facility. These are ways that individuals who are not in an institution can reduce their assets. So any way the individual chooses to reduce assets within the calendar month where Medi-Cal is needed, they can reduce, could be by transferring money to a relative. They can purchase certain items to help reduce their assets. And another way that they can reduce is they can apply qualified unpaid medical expenses towards a prior month that had excess assets. And when we say qualified medical expenses, these are medical expenses or bills that were prescribed by a physician. So it has to be prescribed by a doctor and medical related to help reduce the asset limits. For example, if the household is a household of one, the asset limit for a household of one is $130,000. Let's say they exceed that limit by $500. So once again, for individuals not in an institution, they can reduce it any way they choose, or if they have unpaid medical expenses, once again, they have to be unpaid and they have to have been prescribed by a doctor. So once that expense is paid and you provide us that verification, we would apply that towards that excess resource. So if the bill was $500, we'd apply that to the excess resource where you exceeded $500, and the individual would then be within the 130,000 limit for that household size of 1. And next, we'll look at reporting requirements. So once again, starting in January of 2026, all applicants who are being evaluated under the non-MAGI programs, they will be required to provide asset property information to help determine if the individual or household qualifies for non-MAGI Medi-Cal. Also, for existing beneficiaries that are receiving Medi-Cal and non-MAGI Medi-Cal, I should say, at renewal, they will be required to provide their asset information to determine if they continue to be eligible or if their resources are within the resource limit for their household size. And once again, when determining the household size, that would be the individual, the applicant, their spouse, or any children that are under the age of 21. And with that, that concludes my presentation on asset reinstatement. And I will turn it back over to Isela. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Yes, my name is Isela, and I'm also one of the program analysts here in Medi-Cal Program and Policy. And I will be going over Medi-Cal expansion and Medi-Cal expansion freeze. We are going to start with Medi-Cal expansion freeze, but first I wanted to give you a little bit of history of how we got to what is Medi-Cal expansion freeze. Since 2016, California has provided undocumented individuals, also known as individuals with unsatisfactory immigration, that qualified for Medi-Cal full scope coverage. And they did this in phases. It started in May of 2016, where California children under the age of 19, regardless of immigration status, received full scope Medi-Cal when they were determined eligible. The next phase was January of 2020, that included individuals aged 19 to 26. The following phase was May of 2022, which included 50 individuals 50 years of age or older. And this last phase was implemented January of 2024 for individuals aged 26 to 49, regardless of immigration status, received full scope Medi-Cal when they were determined eligible. However, beginning January 1st of 2026, the Medi-Cal expansion freeze, as it is known, will pause all enrollments to full scope Medi-Cal for new applicants with unsatisfactory immigration status that are aged 19 and older. So this means that adults aged 19 and older with unsatisfactory immigration status that apply on or after January 1st of 2026 will only be evaluated for restricted scope Medi-Cal. Restricted scope Medi-Cal only covers emergency visits and pregnancy care. So you'll notice that I said adults age 19 and above. That's because children age 0 to 18 and pregnant persons will remain eligible to apply for full scope Medi-Cal regardless of immigration status, January 1st and beyond. So for individuals that have unsatisfactory immigration status and already have full scope Medi-Cal, those individuals that were part of that four-phased approach to full scope Medi-Cal, and including those that have unsatisfactory immigration status but apply by December 31st of this year, if they become eligible to Medi-Cal, they will get full scope Medi-Cal coverage and keep it until June 30th of 2026. Now, you'll notice that I said that they will keep their full scope Medi-Cal until June 30, 2026. This is because starting July 1, 2026, this group of individuals that make up that expansion population that was phased in phases, they're going to transition to full scope Medi-Cal with no dental beginning July 1st, 2026. This Medi-Cal will continue to cover all primary care services and medications, just no dental services. On the next slide, you'll see the side-by-side comparison of the Medi-Cal covered services under each Medi-Cal scope of coverage. So the first column, of course, is the services. And right now, every Californian that has Medi-Cal, regardless of immigration status, has full scope Medi-Cal. You can see that each service is checked off. Those individuals that make up the expansion population group that were phased in are going to transition to full scope Medi-Cal with no dental on July 1st of next year. So they will all keep their full scope Medi-Cal until June 30th. Now for the expansion freeze, any individual that has unsatisfactory immigration status that applies on January 1st of 2026 or after will only be evaluated for restricted scope Medi-Cal. And as you can see, the only services checked off are emergency services and maternity and newborn care. However, I would like to add that long-term care services is also covered under restricted scope Medi-Cal. So I mentioned the expansion grace period for individuals that are part of that expanded population group that was phased in. Those individuals are going to have their full scope Medi-Cal this year. They will have it next year and the year after that, as long as they continue to be eligible. They'll have full scope Medi-Cal, of course, July 1st or after. They won't have the dental services, but other than that, they will have their full scope coverage. For these individuals, if coverage ends for any reason, they will have a 3-month grace period to provide any documentation necessary to reinstate their full scope benefits. For example, if Medi-Cal is terminated because we keep getting return mail and we have information stating that they're no longer residing in California, Medi-Cal benefits can be terminated. But if that person contacts us within that 3-month grace period and says, wait, I moved, but I am still in California, they can reinstate their full scope benefits. However, if their Medi-Cal is not reinstated within the 3-month grace period and they reapply after, they will only be evaluated for restricted scope Medi-Cal. And for that reason, it is very important for us to have the most current contact information for our beneficiaries. Let us know if you move, if you change your phone number or email address within 10 business days. That will ensure that you receive any information from us, any important documents, or any requests from us for information, including the annual renewal packet. So for individuals that want to apply for Medi-Cal, including those with unsatisfactory immigration status, we urge that group of individuals to apply by December 31st of this year to be able to get that full scope Medi-Cal coverage. But individuals can apply online at our benefitscal.com application portal. They can go to any of our district offices throughout the county and apply in person. They can also apply by phone by calling our customer service center at 866-613-3777, or they can apply through coveredcalifornia.com. For individuals that apply through Covered California, when they enter their information, and if Covered California sees that the individual's income is within Medi-Cal limits, Covered California will send that application over to DPSS and we will complete it here. I invite everybody to visit our website because I know that there's some individuals or some listeners that are wondering about today's presentation. So our website also will have the same information that we're providing today, including links to the Department of Healthcare Services, the links that you see on the screen right now. And we also would like to invite you to follow us on our social media handles. I don't know if we have there we go. So we are on all these social media platforms, and on these platforms, we also provide information on our webinars that we're going to be scheduling. So following us here is an excellent way to get the latest information that we have, not only for Medi-Cal program, but for our other programs, but including our scheduled webinars that we will be having. And of course, as we mentioned, going to our website, our healthcare page, we're constantly updating it with information. The information we gave today, plus any incoming information that we'll get, and the schedules for any future webinars as well.